Welcome to a new episode of Mobility and Inclusion. My guest today is the mindset coach, Shane Boyd. To be honest, Shane and I met not so long ago, but looking at his material, I wanted to invite him on the show to talk about what it goes into our decision-making process and what kind of mindset that would take to, to maximize our reach, income, and impact, the way you put it on your website. Well, Shane, welcome to the show.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Before we dive in deep into what I just said, let's talk about you and how you came to be in this position as a mindset coach. I mean,
Okay, could be a long story, but I'll give you the short and skinny of it.
sounds good.
It pretty much it all started back in December of 1999. It's a long time ago from now. That was really the impetus of it, and I didn't realize it then. I was in a really bad car accident, is what it was. I fell out of a moving vehicle, and then the vehicle ran me over. I actually became a human speed bump, is what happened. Nobody knew it. I was rushed to the hospital 8 hours later, as well. I always kind of joke about that. But yeah, they didn't realize it. They didn't realize it ran me over. It was a night of doing dumb things. Anyway, I did go to the hospital the next day and I had brain surgery. So I do have a steel plate in my head from brain surgery. I didn't know it then, but that really was the impetus of me working on mindset and performance and personal development. It kind of catapulted me into a whole new area of life. It really did. After that, I became an entrepreneur and I ran a company for approximately 17 years before I started doing full-time personal development and speaking and mindset coaching a couple of years ago. Why did I get into it? Man, this sounds awesome. It was because of what helped me. That's why I got into it.
Yeah, no, that's that's a very good and short, I should say holistic and short presentation of yourself. I was, very entertained by that. And, I'm glad you are here today after, being used as a speed bump. So, I mean, we can joke about it now, but I'm sure at that time it was, pretty horrible, right?
It's freaky. And if people who are listening to this and you have your own things you've had to wrestle with whatever mobility issues you had to go through, it's freaky. I don't care how you slice it, man. You have brain surgery. That sounds crazy, right? I mean, even the science is just weird about it. Yeah, it was something to get through.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm so excited to talk to you about it now that I remember either seeing it or reading somewhere about you being used as a human speed bump, but I had forgotten about it. And I think that's what caught my eyes initially when I first wanted to invite you on my podcast. But I'm glad you brought it back up because, as I just told you that, this podcast is mainly for people with disabilities. And people don't realize that 85% of people with disabilities acquire their disability later in life, either through an accident or some form of disease or whatever the case may be, right? You had that unfortunate accident, came back from it, if you will, came back from the dead. I don't know if that we can call it that, right? Because and you said you were rushed to the hospital 8 hours later. That was a good thing to say as well. That so you still have the plate in your brain?
Oh gosh, it's not in the brain, it's on the skull.
The
The
skull,
reason
okay.
those are people who's had accidents listen to the podcast. Sometimes you get a broken limb, whatever, and you need a steel pin to keep it together.
Mhm.
Well, your skull, yeah, it houses your brain. It doesn't heal the same way a clavicle does or a femur does. It will meld back together, but not super strong.
Yeah.
The steel plate has nothing to do with my brain. It is really just to cover that skull to make sure it doesn't get damaged. That's all it
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah, sorry, that was a poor choice of words on my end.
No,
So
it's funny.
I know you can put a medal on your brain, but you
It's
know.
all good.
So interesting. So after that you got into you say so you got into entrepreneurship after that, right? You ran your own company.
I did. I was at a point where I came back from the accident, worked where I did for a while, worked for a family business, and one day that business stopped. It was a construction company. The work stopped coming in. And I was sitting there on my couch when I got the phone call from my dad saying that the work is done. And I had my daughter already and I had my son on the way. And I was like, crap, what am I going to do? So I went the entrepreneur route. Don't really subscribe to the whole. I didn't even have the option, anyways, of doing any kind of government help at all. It wasn't even an option, nor did I even. I just don't think that way.
Yeah,
Anyhow,
yeah, no.
I'm one of those. If it is to be, it's up to me, and I praise God for all I have and done. But it was spirit driven. The company that I owned, it's not sexy, it's not awesome to look at, but it ran well and paid well. It was a home inspection company.
Mhm.
You can even say that, like, okay, well, people listen to the call. You buy a house, you would hire somebody to look at it to make sure it's fine.
Yeah,
That's what I did. I had a blue collar background, so that's what I did for better part of 17 years,
uh,
which
that's
is what helped me get into what I'm doing now. Oddly enough, but it
yeah.
did.
I want to come back to how you transitioned from that to the mindset
Yeah.
thing, but no, I totally resonate with you. So I come from 15 years in the aerospace and defense industry, right?
Okay.
And I'm currently transitioning or working on the transition from the corporate world into the entrepreneurial world.
Mhm.
And I'm doing it through, assistive robotics for people with mobility challenges.
Right.
So, and as you, now I know it more than ever that I don't really subscribe to that traditional go to school, get a job type of thing, even though that was my route, even though
Right.
that's a path I followed initially.
Mhm.
But 15 years later, I'm realizing that there's so much more to what I can offer than just sitting in a desk, in some company, doing work that may or may not be impactful, right? And and I say this all the time. I always enjoyed my positions, my career choice,
Mhm.
but it came to a point where I'm not enjoying who who I'm doing the work for, meaning my employer. I rather serve the people directly, and
Mhm.
that's why I'm transitioning out. So I feel like we have some things in common, right? In terms of not being subscribed to the traditional route. I mean, you realize that far sooner than I did, but hey. uh,
No, actually, I ended up doing that traditional route as well. I did. I had entrepreneurship, and that's what I was doing for raising my kids and have my family. I had my company.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know if you remember anything about 2008, 2009, 2000.
yes,
If you remember that time period,
hmm,
there was a horrible recession.
yep,
We look back now, it was so long ago. It is what it is. Things come and go, ebb and flow. I was in an industry that was directly affected by that,
yeah,
the home inspection industry. And I was like, I can't survive with this. I got part-time work. I sold life insurance, still did inspections when it trickled in. I went to college. I was, you know what? Let's get a degree. I always had a dream of working in Wall Street kind of thing. Let's go get a
yeah.
degree. So I did. I went, got my associates, I got my bachelor's in marketing. I finished with my MBA. So 3.5 years later, I got 3 degrees, all well and good. After I finished my MBA program, the work kind of came back. It took me 3.5 years to do all that.
Hmm.
By that time, I was already doing well, and I couldn't afford a pay cut.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah,
go that route. I was looking at that point, not super sexy income. At that time, about 90K a year. Well, if I was leaving that to go work in corporate America, I would do about 50 a year. And I was like, that's nuts. I'm in my 20s maybe, but I'm a
yeah,
grown man. I can't do that.
yeah.
So the whole, I joke with that now. With my MBA, with that and $5, give me coffee down the road. That's all.
Well, it's amazing how God put people in each other, how God put us in in the same path, right? Like we're having this
Sure.
podcast together because, similar to you. So I have two kids, and my daughter was, just turned one, and I have a 3-year-old son, and I
Nice.
was when my daughter was born, I was like looking. I mean, I'm considered to be making decent money from
Mhm.
my corporate gig, right? but I looked at my
Mhm.
expenses and what it would take to send my kids, both my kids, to a non public
Mhm.
school, right?
Right.
And I realized that I cannot afford to send my daughter, who's my second, to
Mhm.
school, to the school that I want to send her to, right?
Right.
Um, and that was a big wake up moment for me. I'm like, what am I doing here? So and yeah, I make a decent income supposedly on books, right?
Right.
But then I can't afford essential stuff like sending my daughter to school, right? It was very odd. So um yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I'm already very happy that I have you on here. Now let's talk about, because like you transitioned from the corporate world into the developing yourself and mindset training. I had a similar background, and I didn't think of that personal development mindset. I didn't give it a lot of thought before,
Right.
right? But it came to a point in my life where that was necessary. uh,
Totally.
I, I think I think the word necessary is necessary to use in this case, right?
It works,
Because
man. Yeah.
so please tell me about how you walked into that mindset space.
Excellent. Yep. I'll take the long journey and make it nice and short. In 2007, I had the home inspection company and didn't know how to run a company. I didn't. I knew how to be a doer of the company.
Yeah.
Actually, Michael Gerber, if you everybody listen to him or read about him, he's the E-Myth revisited. Michael Gerber put it this way, and he says, "You start a business and you're stupid. You start a business and you're stupid." I mean, it's like if you don't know what you're doing, like, what am I doing, right? I
Yeah.
didn't know what I was doing. I knew how to do the thing, but I didn't know how to run the thing, right? I hired a marketing coach for home inspectors, and that was in 2007. That was it. It clicked right then and there. Not as much to mindset, but I learned from him about books, about different courses to take, about marketing, about sales, about running a business. I don't know if you can see behind me, I have a whole library of books. It's just part of my book collection I have. That's what started it.
Yeah.
I'm reading books like Think and Grow Rich, and then I'm reading things and all his Napoleon Hill's whole library. Then I read from Jack Canfield and read about Dan Kennedy and Joe Vitale, Zig Ziglar, and all that.
Mhm.
You just name it, Tony Robbins. They're all so I'm reading all this stuff, and it's just building all this information. I'm like, oh my, I had no idea this world existed.
Yeah.
Did not know, and every time I improved, guess what? My life improved, my income improved. And I was like, there's something to this.
Yeah.
There's something
Yeah.
to this, man. As far as this switch, and I still kept the home inspection company. I actually ended up doing business coaching as well. But what was really at my heart, quite honestly, goes way back to that December of 1999 accident. And I wrote a book about that back in 2016, 2017. The book is called Speed Bumps in the Mind, because you can kind of see how that goes. I was a human
Yeah.
speed bump and
Absolutely.
all that fun stuff. So I tell the story and then I transition into personal development. And basically, in the book, I'm teaching you, how to unleash your greatness, do stuff that matters, and live on purpose.
Hmm.
I love that. That just juices me whenever I say that, right? So I
Yeah.
was hired to do like professional speeches on different companies that hired me to do that. I wrote the book and all that jazz. I was like, that's something that God gave me. It's spirit driven from day one. So that's absolutely something that God gave me. I can't
Mhm.
go around just preaching. I'm not a minister, so that didn't make sense. I didn't want to do that route. I'm
Yeah.
happy that they do. That's just not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the
Absolutely.
speeches kept resonating with people. It was motivational and it was fun. I had a great time doing it. And
Yeah.
I kept seeing, even during business coaching, that my mindset work was getting more resonance. People were more interested in that and getting more results from that. So I was like, you know what? Let's run with that. That's what I was given years ago. Let's finally use what God gave me
Hmm.
to serve those He called me to serve. And what really transitioned was thinking about who can I help with this. I know I can. I was given a gift, and
Hmm.
there's a whole process to that. I mean, there's finding out what you want and who you
Yeah.
want to serve. A whole different process to that. But I realized, you know what? If I could lead, motivate, and inspire a generation of men to lead, love, and live to their full potential, what kind of impact would that leave on planet Earth? And I was like, that's big, man. That's a big, grandiose vision. I dig it. Thank you, Lord. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it was through thinking of that, through prayer and reading. Remember, I told you the books?
Yep.
Zig Ziglar kept popping up. I read basically all of his books. I actually went through one of his certification courses called Choose to Win.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what I'm coaching when I work with people. But it's actually there is working with our 7 areas of life. It's mental, spiritual, physical, financial, family, personal, career. That's your 7 areas of life.
Yeah.
Then I was like, that's it. That is it. It is mindset entirely, because without the mindset, I wouldn't have been able to start the business. I wouldn't have been
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have gone to school. I wouldn't have tried the new thing. I wouldn't have hired a coach to help me. I was like, what kind of mindset did I have? Very simple, a growth mindset. I
Mm-hmm.
realized I have a growth mind. It's not fixed. I have a growth
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Man, as you're talking, I'm getting goosebumps, but but just because, and the reason I'm getting goosebumps is not only because everything that you're saying I agree with, is because I was someone who didn't believe in this stuff before,
Mhm.
who thought that everything is pure scientifical. It's like, it's like everything is data, right? Everything is, it's like you have the right side of the equation and your left side of the equation, and whatever the equation is, kind of like very methodical, right? And very traditional, if you will, in terms of that, go to school, get a job, and 1 + 1 = 2, that type of thing. And I saw in myself that, how my entire thinking shifted when I was presented with, material similar to what you're referencing, really.
Yeah.
And it was then that I decided to take my life into my own hands, and do certain things in a different way. And like you, I realized that I have a growth mindset, and one day someone told me, if you're not growing, uh it's not that you're staying still, you're actually moving backwards, because time is moving forward,
Yeah.
right? And
Totally.
that made a huge impact in me specifically. So no, I appreciate you sharing that. And so I'm assuming Bob Proctor had something to do in your life as well, right?
Totally. Yes, it was all of those. I was not unlike a lot of other people. I watched the movie The Secret.
Uh-huh.
Okay, watched the movie The Secret, read the book. It was probably 2007 or 8 by the time I got around to it. Learned about Bob Proctor, Jack Canfield, Joe Vitale, all of that. Learned about law of attraction.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to get too like new agey, because I'm just not, because I'm a believer. But anyways, it's even in the Bible. Jesus talks about, what you ask for, what you focus on, you expands.
Absolutely.
And I was living it, and I was like, holy crap, this stuff really works, man. And it's
Yeah.
not that it's magic and it comes to you. I don't want people to think I'm going to preach that. It's not. But I mean, dude, focus on something that you really want.
Yeah.
Anybody listening to this call, focus on something you really want. What kind of happens? Your brain kind of kicks in and kind of guides you towards it. Now your brain picks up on things and realizes, oh, I need to go that way. Oh, this book just kind of popped up. Oh, this podcast happened. You just kind of moving towards it. Things serendipity happens.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
started
Absolutely.
that from Bob Proctor and Joe Vitale. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because I kind of followed that material too, so that's why I asked. And what would you say to people, such as my former self, who, don't really, I don't want to say believe, but they don't give much importance to the mindset, to how powerful your state of the mind is in determining what kind of results you're going to get. So how do you what's your secret sauce, if you will, to transitioning them from that place to this new place where they'll be like, ah, okay, now I get it, how mindset is very important into how I live my life better.
Yep, yeah. I tell them first of all, I said, I get it. I said I was programmed as well. We're all programmed. You
Hmm.
get on, you get at the same level of them. Say, hey, I was programmed for so many years. I'm a blue collar worker.
Yeah.
You know, I come from the breed that to get more money and earn more money, you have to work overtime. Overtime was great, and then dig more ditches and work harder and longer. That was programming. I didn't know what I didn't know, but I do know this. Your thoughts brought you to where you are today, and your thoughts are going to take you to wherever you want to go tomorrow. And then I asked them, it depends on who the person is. If they're whatever they're an engineer. Let's say
Hmm.
they're a structural engineer. Great. Well, your thoughts brought you there. Is that correct? You didn't just walk around and go leave school and all of a sudden meander your way into a structural engineer's office and you start doing blueprints.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
no, of course not. You had to think about, what do I want? Oh, popped in my head. I like math. Therefore, I want to do engineering. Great. Your thoughts brought you there.
Yeah.
What do you want? And that's what we transitioned into. Your mind brought you there. Your body may have walked there, but your brain is the one that controls you. Your mind brought you there.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
can go into different examples. It depends who the rapport I'm with.
Yeah.
The person plays football, basketball, sports, whatever, man. It's like your
Yeah.
mind
Absolutely.
helps
So
you get these trophies, man. So we have
yeah.
to
Yeah.
start there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're very true. I'm coaching someone right now who, and I was a former professional basketball player. So I'm coaching a basketball player right now who's, pretty talented, but he's too consumed with outside influences, and which is impacting his performance.
Totally.
Yeah. So yeah, saying that, I I immediately thought about the athlete that I'm coaching. Um, the other thing I was going to ask you is how how was the transition for you
Mhm.
after the accident? Like what? Because as I said before, I work with a lot of people with disabilities, right? And I've been injured before, but my injuries were temporary, right? I always healed. Um, but I know a lot of people who had unfortunate injuries, but the injury had a lasting
Mhm.
impact on them, and almost everybody had a difficult time in transitioning. I actually interviewed a former Navy officer who was raped and tossed off a cliff, and she suffered through a spinal cord injury, and she lives today with that spinal cord injury.
Mhm.
And when I was interviewing her, she's someone of faith as well.
Mhm.
um, and she told me, like, it took me 20 years to forgive
Right.
the people who did that to her, right?
Mhm.
um, so just imagine how a Navy officer, fully capable of doing everything and anything,
Mhm.
finds herself in a situation where she's no longer the same. She's about 2 feet shorter, right?
Mhm.
Always on wheelchairs. So how was your experience into coping with your injury and moving forward after that?
Gotcha. I hear you. And I don't want to make my story sound like it was a snap of a finger and I was fine. It happened when I was 22. I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof, basically. I was in great shape. And mine, I just believe that I was blessed the whole way through. How did I cope with it? This is going to sound really silly. But when I came back from the hospital, I was in the hospital, I think about 4 or 5 days. I forget. I think it's about 5 days or so.
Mhm.
When I came home, as silly as it sounds, I sat and I thought back to mindset work before I knew mindset work was mindset work, man.
Yeah.
I sat and I thought about my past. Why? I wanted to see if I was okay. Freaking out about a brain surgery. I mean, I was kind of on meds for the first few weeks, but I thought about my past. And I could remember very detailed things about my past. I couldn't remember most of that night that happened. of the accident. I remember a lot. So that's what I did. I would sit and think before I even knew if that thinking was a thing, man. This is, man, I was 22. I was out on a night of drinking, doing dumb things. And what is my
Yeah,
thought?
yeah,
Responsible. So I was doing mindset work before I knew mindset work was cool, right?
yeah.
Um, but with me, the whole process took within a month after my accident. I was back to working half days at the shop I worked at. A month and a half later, I was working full time at the same shop and going to the gym 3 days a week. I say with at that point, at the age of 22, we're not fully grown. We're not fully developed. Our brains are not fully developed.
Absolutely.
Many people know that it's not just cliche, it's real. You're not really, your brain isn't fully developed till you're 25. Your amygdala isn't full grown. So I didn't
Mhm.
have a thing called consequences. I didn't know. I didn't know the severity of it, which is awesome. Yeah, I didn't know my limitations. I would say similar to the old thing we hear about the bumblebee. You may
Yep.
have all heard that story. The bumblebee, by science definition, can't fly because it's too fat, the wings are too small. It's not aerodynamic.
Hmm.
Well, the bumblebee doesn't read. The bumblebee just flies.
Yep.
I didn't know. I know it's kind of a long explanation, but the reason I wanted to put it like that was because people a lot older than me went through some terrible, terrible times and had a hard time going through it. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was just focused on healing. All I wanted to do was get back to normal. And I can do a quote from The Secret where he says the man that wrecked his plane and was paralyzed and neck down for a period of time. He says, as long as you have your mind, you have all you need.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
what I was doing, mindset work, and didn't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very powerful, man. I'm thank you for sharing that story. So what are your current endeavors?
Okay. Since then, I mean, lots have happened since what, the whole accident and whatnot, but I'm big into martial arts. I got 3 different black belts, so I do train in
Wow.
martial arts. Yeah, I had a great time. I had to do some research, reading about brain stuff and whatever else. Pretty much that's how I learned so much about the steel plate thing. But nope, I love martial arts. I don't mind getting hit. I can deal with that. It's love. It's just more of a hobby and fun time for me. But I love martial arts. I love going to church and going with my kids. My kids are grown. My daughter's 26. My son is 18. Um, but the next real, not even obstacle, but the next challenge for me is I really want to be on the speaking circuit and travel and speak and tell my story. I want to speak from the stage. Yes, I do coaching and I got products, all that cool stuff. It's great. I want to go on the speaking circuit because, mind you, when I started all this a few years back, a couple years ago, COVID kind of hit about that time, and things Zoom is
Yeah.
awesome. I do
Yeah.
Zoom meetings and podcasts, but I definitely want to be on the stage speaking. So that's my next animal I'm going to tackle. On the
That's
same,
yeah.
rewrite the book and make it a different book. That's what I'm going to do. Speak.
Yeah, I think well, I believe you'd be a great speaker, especially with your potent story. That would be, I'm sure a lot of people will, resonate with what you have to say, with your story, the way, just benefit from your experiences, right? And that's ultimately what you're trying to do. You're trying to help people based on your experiences and your education and how you allowed yourself to grow, how you invested in your personal development, which it's I'm kind of ashamed to admit right now that I until maybe 4 years ago, I didn't invest any money in well, I did invest in my education. Similar to you, I have 3 degrees, right? But
Yeah,
you know, that education is not going to make you prosperous. And I don't mean prosperous just financially, right? In every aspect of your life, that education is going to serve you very little, if
right.
if that. So yeah, so I'm glad you're out there doing this, doing what you're doing. And have you joined the Speakers Association at all?
I have not. I said I'm doing 2023. We're moving to Orlando next month.
Okay.
Different things there, but think about how many seminars and conferences happen in Orlando. A lot, dude.
Yeah.
A lot happened there. So it'll be in my own backyard. So I can basically go and just start speaking for free
Yeah.
Right. But as far as that, I want to get the golden gavel from Toastmasters. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. No, those are great great goals to have, man. I'm really excited for you.
Oh,
Um
thank you.
and,
Thank you.
and how can people find you? Where should they look to get in touch with Shane Boyd?
Simple enough. I'll tell you my website. It's probably the first place to go. It has some information on there. It is theshaneboyd.com. And
And
I would say this, it is not the Shane Boyd for vain. It's not vanity. All right. There is a football player in Canada named Shane Boyd. And
okay.
he is the domain name. All right. So the Shane Boyd is my domain. That's where I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Got it, got it. All right, perfect. And I will include that information when I post this episode also.
Cool. Thank you.
Shane, thank you so much for your time. I truly enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise, very good meeting you. Thank you.
Likewise, and I look forward in staying in touch.
Likewise, thank you.
All right, have a good one, man.
You
Bye.
too, Bye.